Welcome to the Desert Sanctuary with Karl and Laura Forehand.
Often when we have doubts about religion or simply want to ask questions, it can feel like we are wandering out into the desert.
We would like to invite you to join our sanctuary, the Desert Sanctuary.
We've tried to pick guests that would resonate with and challenge us and our fellow seekers here in the desert.
We believe that a key to the journey is to keep asking good questions, and we believe that all stories are sacred.
Our hope is that you will find life and healing for your body and mind, and that you will be able to be where you are and be who you are.
And now, here is our show. Hi, welcome to the Desert Sanctuary podcast. I'm Laura Forehand. I'm here with Karl Forehand, and this is kind of an impromptu Sunday recording of the podcast. So, what do we got going on?
We started again talking to survivors, and that's going kind of slow. It just takes longer to get people to tell their story, and you have to have timing for that. So we also thought I started writing this week about things we've learned in a decade of deconstruction. We've been through about 10 years of deconstruction, and kind of every once in a while it's nice to summarize and say, what have we learned so far? What are we learning? So I just started on that this morning. Instead of going to church, oddly enough, I wrote about why I don't need religion.
Yeah.
So kind of timing there, right?
Yeah.
It's the decade of deconstruction, part one, why I don't need religion, or I don't need religion. So what's your reaction to that first?
I mean, it sounds good. It's hard to believe it's been a decade, and I feel like I've come so far in a decade, but I feel like I still have a lot of things to unpack, which I'm fine with. I think I've said many times on this podcast and other podcasts, like, I don't feel the need to reconstruct or build something different. Right. I just want to, continue to learn what my true authentic self is, whatever that looks like, whatever that means. But I don't need religion. Yeah. I mean, I agree with that just because, and I want people to understand, because of the harm that it's done to us, it's not, and to so many other people that we've talked to, it's not just, we've just got a bad taste in our mouth about religion. Like, we've heard so many stories of people that have been harmed by, religion and in the name of God and Jesus. And so, I'm interested I went on to Substack, and there's a listening thing now.
Yeah, that's
because
a neat thing we discovered.
Very audio.
Yeah.
So I listened to it, and so I'm interested and excited to kind of dig in and kind of see where I land.
I think it's important to point out that we're not against connection in our community. People always bring up community, and we talk about how you can find community anywhere and so on. But we got to admit that as humans, we're deeply wired for connection. We go through attachment early in life with our mom or caregiver. And that's a thing that needs to happen and should happen. And if it doesn't happen, we have consequences for that. It kind of builds trauma for later in life. And if we don't make that attachment, so we need connection with other humans. We need attachment. We need to be together with people. You can't love your neighbor when you're not with your neighbor.
Right.
So we need that community. But like I said, first of all, we can find it anywhere.
Right.
But also we're talking about something different.
It's interesting that you said neighbor, because I immediately thought, what's the definition of neighbor? And I remember there were so many times in church, whether you were pastor or somebody else was pastor, and them saying well, your neighbor is, person right next to you. And I'm like, but like you're saying, how many times do we leave our neighborhood and our actual neighbors to go sit with people that we may or may not. I mean, other than saying that we're all Baptists or we're all Lutheran or we're all Methodists, you
Mhm.
know, do we have anything else that's in common? Are we really, you know, helping each other out?
And while it's good to have associations and like connect with people that are similar to us and do things with us, it's also important to have organic community where you can't control who your neighbor is.
Right.
It's good for us to get out and work in a workplace where people aren't necessarily from the same place we are,
Hmm.
where they might not be the same color we are, or they
Hmm.
don't have the same religion or the beliefs that we do. When you isolate yourself in a community that's exactly like you, uh, I think it just leads to more problems,
Hmm.
right? It's
Hmm.
just real easy to protect each other and
Yeah.
look
Become
out.
us versus them.
Yeah, and
Hmm.
and you know, again with everything, it's like there's a certain amount of that that's necessary. We group together to protect each other.
Hmm.
But then if we become isolated from the rest of the world and everybody else is the world and they're evil and they're bad and they're totally different than us,
Hmm.
you know, then we've got a problem because it's just people that are pretty much identical to us that believe the same way, that have been indoctrinated the same way from the same part of the country and so on and so forth. You just come up with what I call faux community or
Hmm.
fake community. It's
Right.
organized by a clergy or a priest
Hmm.
and it does what it does, but maybe not the things that it needs to do.
Right. Yep. I mean, I agree with you. Yeah.
The other thing I mentioned in there is we don't need a shepherd, and
Mm.
that sounds heretical right off the bat because even Jesus talked about being a good shepherd. And but the trouble with shepherds is shepherds shepherd sheep. You know,
Hmm.
in all the examples that were given, it's sheep. And so it's mindless creatures. They're just attempting to herd together and
Hmm.
they want them to do exactly what they want, do the same things. They don't have a mind of their own. They
Yeah, but in that which, I mean, that's kind of like church. I
yeah.
mean, we're all
It,
supposed to believe the same thing and do the same thing and act the same way. And yeah, so in a way,
yeah.
I guess we are sheep, you know. Anyway, I
That
didn't mean to cut you off, but
that's what you kind of get with shepherds, right?
hmm.
The shepherd has a staff, keep people in line
Hmm.
and keep them doing exactly what they need to all be together. They need to do, they can't be individualistic. They can't ask questions. They can't resist. They can't do anything
Hmm.
except be sheep,
Right.
right? And so in a church, that means you show up every week, you show up to all the activities, you give your money and also your volunteer time.
Hmm.
You don't really have a voice. You know, certain people do. A few people are selected to have a voice, and mainly there's one voice
Hmm.
that tells everyone else what to do, what to think, and how to proceed with life.
Hmm.
So it's really like a sheep. And so I would go seek out these men in the pastorate and say, "Give me the secret. You know, tell me what to do. You know, how can I succeed? How can I do this right?" And they'd say, "You know, just keep doing what you're doing."
Hmm.
And they didn't really have any individual advice because they didn't want to take the time to dig in with me and dig down
Right.
deep and find out who I am and what I struggle with.
Mm.
Those just weren't the conversations we have. So they'd say, "Well, I don't have a silver bullet for you. Just keep doing what you're doing." So, but the leaders, the guides, I want to call them guides out here in the desert of deconstruction, have been different than that. They
Mm.
kind of show up when you need them with the information that you need.
Hmm.
And then they kind of encourage you to go on your own and do your thing.
Keep investigating.
Yeah, and keep searching. And sometimes they take the time to help you investigate that and so on. And it's more, much more focused on determining who you are
Hmm.
than than just these are the things you need to do to be like us.
Hmm.
It's I want to help you. I want to encourage you to be who you are
Hmm.
and be yourself.
Hmm.
So it's a little bit different focus, and you get a lot different advice, and you get sometimes very little advice, but just encouragement and
Hmm.
sharing of information and experiences that we've had. And that's one of the things I think that's more important is the sharing of
Mhm.
experiences.
Yeah, and I feel like, it's okay to be who you are, right? It's not, I mean, it's okay if you're not exactly like the other people that are out in the desert. Like I think about, we know people that are atheists, and even though we don't, you know, consider ourselves atheists for a variety of reasons, we can still like have community and dialogue with them, right? We don't have to be exactly like them. They don't have to be exactly like us. You know, we encourage them to continue on their journey, whatever that might look like, and they can, continue to encourage us to do the same thing.
Even when people would come to me as a shepherd and ask me for advice, uh, they still wouldn't even let me give them advice that wasn't inside their box.
Hmm.
That was it didn't sound like pretty much what they already
Hmm.
believed. They kept guardrails on us, and the boards did, and the deacons did,
Hmm.
and certainly the congregation did also. So, you know, do you really need a shepherd just so that you can go once a week and he'll say what you expect him to say? He or she will give you what you're expecting. Maybe they put a twist on it. Maybe they tell you a meaningful story or something like that. But it's really all about instilling a little bit of fear about the
Hmm. Yeah.
outside. And I'll protect you. We'll protect you from it if you stay in the fold. If not, you're outside our protection. Right.
So, yeah, let me ask you a question about that. So, like, did you, when we first were like, okay, we're done with the institution of the church, did you feel like that fear? You know what I'm saying? Did you feel a fear of, oh my gosh, now I don't have those borders, those boundaries around me anymore?
Yeah, I think I imagine initially we did, right?
No, I'm talking about you.
I mean, yeah.
I mean, I'll answer for myself, but I
Uh,
just mean you, because
I
I don't
th
know that I've ever asked you that question
I think
before.
of course, I felt that, and I think that's why we tried for a while, for a couple of years, to stay in a church. It was a little bit bigger, and the guy was a little more progressive and so on. And we tried to deconstruct there. It eventually, didn't work. But
Mm-hmm.
that's what that fear is. I need somebody to guide me,
Mm-hmm.
and to shepherd me, you
Right.
know, because I want to do what we're supposed to do.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like what's the new system and what's the new supposed to do, and
Yeah, that's the thing. The supposed to do's have a tendency to
they
change.
do, and they're specific to the group.
Right.
Although all evangelical Christians will ascribe to something similar, but then each church is different. And it's very little leeway to get outside of that. So when you're starting out, you're afraid because what if I don't do this right, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Or what if I'm not doing the right things? I need someone to guide me, and eventually you kind of gain confidence to speak for yourself and to think
Mm-hmm.
for yourself, and especially to look inside,
Mm-hmm.
and find your North Star, however you want to call that, find your own purpose, discover what you like, discover who you are, what you believe, and what you're learning, what you're coming to believe. But it's scary at first.
Yeah, I guess I'm just surprised, or maybe I don't remember or whatever, but like, I don't remember being afraid for that long. Like
Mhm.
and maybe it was because like mentally I was out before we ever physically got out. Um, but I remember saying, kind of flippant actually at the beginning of our deconstruction, well, I guess if I die tonight, I'm going to go to hell, and not really like it. I really did say it with kind of a flip kind of attitude because I don't think I really believed that would happen.
Right.
Um, so I don't feel like my fear um lasted that long. Now, do I still have like I don't know if you would call them fears. I don't know what you would call them, but every once in a while, I think it's more like I think about death and I think about I don't want to leave the people I love. It's more that than like, oh my gosh, I don't know what I believe. So I don't know if I shouldn't say that. I don't know if they're truly is a God. So, I'm going to go to hell. Here's what I do believe. I believe if there is a God and if this God is love, that even if you are questioning, even if you're not sure, even if you're like me and you're like, I don't know, you know, I've not seen a lot of evidence of, a loving God, but if he is love, I don't think he's going to send people to hell for not
Yeah,
knowing. So
because
I don't really worry about that part of it. I worry more about like, I don't want people to be sad. I don't want to miss out on, my grandchildren's growing up and getting married and having children of their own. I want to be a great grandma, all that kind of stuff. Like that's the stuff I have anxiety over more than just like, where am I going to go after I die?
yeah, and to be honest, Christianity really didn't have answers for that either.
Well,
Other
it just
than,
depends on how well you behave that
if you
day.
create a fear system that makes you afraid, then
Hmm.
you more easily accept whatever they have as an answer for that. And the reason I don't believe in hell is because I couldn't torture even my worst enemy
Hmm.
for like 2 minutes.
Right.
I couldn't stand there and torture them
Hmm.
and like burn them with something or
Right.
do something like that. But the narrative is that he's going to do that to us forever.
Right.
And I'm like, well, I'm just like you. I can't even fathom a God that could be like that,
Hmm.
first of
I
all.
don't, that I would say that I don't believe that there is a God like that.
Right,
If there is a God, I don't believe that that's what that God is like.
right. So, um, we were there, and so yeah, there's a little bit of fear, but I think the point we always make, and I'm always just kind of reminded of this and the way things happen out in the desert that are different from the organization, is that guides seem to kind of show up when you need them,
Hmm.
and I think that's a property of the universe that if you're really looking for answers, you'll find them,
Yeah.
and
Sorry, I was going to say something sarcastic.
but
That's better than God because God doesn't always show up when you need him.
he usually
Sorry.
doesn't, and
Yeah, right.
so. But those guides seem to show up and all along the way, it was people we weren't necessarily looking to. Like for me, the Benedictine sisters were there
Hmm.
at the right time. Dr.
Hmm.
Paul was there at the right time.
Hmm.
Um, Larry Jordan, new friend of ours, was there. A couple of other people like that, and that were podcasters
Hmm.
or other people out here kind of
I
struggling
think
with
of like
being,
I think of like Derek Day just
yeah.
calls you just out of the blue, like just when you need it.
Especially when I had my stroke
Yeah.
and all that kind
But
of
even
stuff.
since then, I mean, it may not be every week like when you were in rehab, but it's, every 6 months or whatever. I mean, yeah, you hear more from him than you
Yeah,
really ever did God.
and
But
probably found the wisdom of my son
oh yeah.
during all this when I was
Hmm.
struggling in my stroke and
Hmm.
going through the mental gymnastics of that.
Hmm.
He was there at the right time,
Yep.
and gave and helped me along better than anybody has, pretty much at that time. He was the perfect person at that time, and it seems
It
like
wasn't me, ladies and gentlemen.
you've been there for the whole haul, and that's a much tougher job.
Probably, and probably there were times that it was better that JD was there than me because, I mean, mentally we were in a different place too. Like we were deconstructing, but then having to go through this. And I just think, there were a lot of things that caused us to be dysregulated with one another during that time. As things like that will do. Like I think that's normal. But anyway, I sidetracked us again.
We've talked several times about how religion is a lot like a cult, or they're cultish,
Hmm. For
and
sure.
Christian religions are pretty much cult-like, at
Hmm.
least,
Hmm.
and they encourage us to isolate from the world.
Hmm.
So every sermon, every week, you'll hear pastors talking about the world and how evil the world is and the others. and now they're given to talk about it in political denominate and political affiliations and things like that. But it's just kind of isolating. And then when you're protected by that organization, sort of, they start to, ask for your money and also ask for your volunteer efforts.
Mm-hmm.
And so people find themselves going to services 3 times a week, and then volunteering for all the activities of the church,
Mm-hmm.
where 70% of that money goes to buildings, building maintenance, and salaries,
Mm-hmm.
and keeping the trains running. So I found recently, that I can volunteer at the school and
Mm-hmm.
pretty much booked up on Wednesdays.
Tuesdays
Tuesday,
and
I have
Wednesday.
a mentor deal on Tuesday.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like I'm helping the kids. I'm helping do something for my community. I'm experiencing community,
Mm-hmm.
become pretty good friends with the principal.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's community. That's me getting involved. And to the extent we volunteer for other organizations and kind of invest some money in that, occasionally go into conferences and things where we learn and get to volunteer.
Mm-hmm.
But no one says you have to believe exactly like us and do things exactly and come here every week and listen to me
Mm-hmm.
speak and tell you
Right.
what to do. Instead, we're able to be this kind of the shepherds of our own community without having to have followers. We
Mm-hmm.
have some followers on Facebook and books and stuff like that, but without needing the organization, without having to have that control over everyone that's in a group. We're not cult-like, we're just on a journey and kind of
Right.
sharing that with others. So I think it's quite different
Mm-hmm.
than religion, and it seems to be better
Yeah,
for me.
I agree.
So what is there some ways that religion can be useful? We want to make sure we represent both sides here
I
in a
mean,
limited way.
I do think that, you know, to be fair, re religion or church is a type of community. I don't think it's the only community.
Hmm.
If you're a Christian and you go to church, I think that's something that you have to decide for yourself. I don't think that's your only community. I think if that's what the church is telling you, with like kind of the examples that you were giving, then I think that needs to be examined because I don't think that's your only community. Um, I think too that there are absolutely times when the church rallies around its people. Again, I see that in other communities too, but I know like when our youngest daughter Lily was at 3 years old, somehow she contracted E. coli. And, I do remember, we were part of a big church at that point in Omaha. And, people did. They came, they sat with us in the hospital. I mean, she was up there for like 2 weeks. We had some good friends at the time that like helped take care of our kids, helped do our laundry. But so I think there are, but I think you have to give credit where credit is due. Yes, the church is a community and they do take care of people, but so do, I think about the school I work.
Mhm.
If there's something that happens, we do meal trains and you know, we find ways to help one another. My teaching partner, had a baby and it's like, people are, giving gifts or doing gift cards for food and things like that. So, yes, the church is a community and they do help the people in their congregation and I think it's noble as long as we recognize that they're not the only community that does that.
Yeah, even in a smaller church, like we pastor churches under 100 generally,
Mm-hmm.
and even in a 70 member church, sometimes you get lost a little bit in there somewhere, and everybody doesn't get cared for like they should.
Mm-hmm.
I think community happens really the best in the smallest of groups,
Mm-hmm.
where maybe in church it's regulating to you to see the same people over and over again. But also, when a couple of you go to a coffee shop and spend some time together and really talk about real problems,
Hmm.
that is community,
Hmm.
and that's real community. But sitting in front of somebody hearing a speech is not community,
Yeah, that's true.
even if there's a group doing it. I mean, you wouldn't go to a Def Leppard concert and say, "This is my family." You might say that, but it's not true, and it's not your group,
Right.
right? You just have a common interest. You're there at the
Mhm.
same time. That doesn't make you a community, right?
Right.
Uh,
And a community should be able to interact with each other. And I know that there are times in the church that you can do that. But like you said, on a Sunday morning, are you allowed to just stand up and go, you know what, I disagree, or I have a question about that? Not in the middle of a service. You can't, that I know of.
yeah,
We've never been part of a church where you could do that. It was either say amen or keep your mouth shut. You might try to have coffee with the pastor or a deacon later and
yeah.
discuss what you
And we
disagree
can
with.
meet with you
But
in 3 weeks on Tuesday.
yeah,
So
right.
it's even, I found even in small groups and churches, we just have a hard time opening up. We're so afraid of being judged, and we're just not used to doing it.
Right.
So, like I said, usually it happens in the smaller group after the small group.
Hmm.
We experienced at that last church we went to a study that could have been transformational. And I remember when we were kind of helping the guy out one time and started getting deep, and he derailed it immediately.
Mm,
Like, okay, okay, we'll just, it's kind of like everybody cheer up. Let's don't get too deep here. And there's just a fear of that anyhow.
absolutely. Yep.
But
There's just a lot of bypassing, which is not healthy,
right.
not healthy at all.
Yeah, and it just doesn't seem like we're ever able to set in uncomfortableness
Hmm.
very long
Hmm.
in a church because we're supposed to have magic answers and those kind of things. So it usually doesn't work out right
Right.
in a group.
Yep.
So, but religion can be useful. But what we've examined in a couple of the books we've written is that, the question, are you addicted to religion? And I think religion is designed to be addictive.
Hmm.
And since the 90s, we've been trying to refine that in
Hmm.
churches, and unapologetically they want to know how to manipulate people, and they want to know how to control your thoughts and lead you to what they want to lead you to. So I think religion definitely is addictive. um, someone's always going to shake my hand and say hi to me, smile at me even if they're not happy.
Mm.
It's going to be a comfortable environment. It's going to be pre-planned and pre-orchestrated, and it's going to touch my endorphins, my serotonin, and all
Mm.
the chemicals in my body are going to be activated.
Mm.
I'm even going to be frightened, but then they're going to give me a solution
Hmm.
to that, a problem I didn't even know I had. So I think it's real easy to get addicted to religion and what my friend Bob Miner calls the high of righteousness.
Hmm.
High of righteousness says I'm right and I'm right, I'm in the right group, and God is on my side.
Hmm.
So, I don't need anything else. I don't need the world out there because it's all evil. My pastor told me it was. And even though I go to work with these people, or they're in my family, or they live next door and might vote for somebody else, we could still, um, we're still not separate
Hmm.
from the world unless they artificially isolate us
Right.
into that. But I think we're addicted to it, and we admit sometimes that it's going to wear off by Monday,
Hmm.
but we still,
Hmm.
go as often as we can and keep chasing the tiger of past religious
But
experiences.
I feel like we're addicted, like it's a slow transition. You know what I mean? Like slowly but surely you it's just indoctrination. I mean, you, because you wind up having these anxieties until you can go back to church and they can tell you, we have the solution for you. We have the answer for you, just pray more, read your Bible more, volunteer more, and then that'll fix it. Only it doesn't fix it. So
Well,
it's
maybe.
interesting to me that yes, it's addictive, but for like, okay, so like when I think about being addicted to chocolate or sugar, which I love, like I'm sitting here thinking about chocolate cake right now and, my mouth is watering. I mean, I love chocolate. I love having a piece of chocolate after we have a meal. Um, am I addicted? Yeah. I mean, it does release those chemicals in my body that make me feel good. But before I have that chocolate, before I have that piece of chocolate, I'm not scared that something bad's going to happen to me.
Mhm.
Or if I don't have that chocolate, that, I'm destined for evil or anything like that. Like I'm trying to understand the psychology around it because I feel like there's so much like that Sunday you go and I'm just remembering my own feelings at that time, my own feelings in my body at that time. And you're just like, it's almost like, I have this release of everything's going to be okay. And then, like you said, it's just slowly but surely as the week goes on, you start having this anxiety. I mean, for me, it wasn't anxiety.
Mhm.
Um, just like if I don't go Sunday, something bad's going to happen, and it's just going to be this terrible, like ripple effect of bad things that are going to happen.
I think it's kind of a low grade addiction because um, you can get the same fix in other places, like music,
Mm-hmm.
like listening to a good speaker, seeing a play, seeing a drama, seeing something, or being around people in general. So it's kind of a low grade addiction. That's why they have to add fear.
Mm-hmm.
Billy Graham discovered that early on in his career, when he was a pretty good speaker, but there's two other speakers at the same time,
Mm-hmm.
doing the same thing, the same age as he was. He kind of distanced himself when he found that fear worked really well.
Yeah.
That if I can talk about the commies or the Russians or
Mm,
or the satanic panic or if I can scare people with hell, that's a bigger thing because then when they're kind of realizing, hey, we're just kind of addicted to this good feeling we get when we come to church. This may not
you
be
can,
enough.
yeah, you can, and maybe you could find that somewhere else, like you
Yeah,
said.
and you could
Yeah.
you could just kind of go, oh well, we really don't need to come, but wait a minute. Then there's the fear. Well, what if
Mm,
I'm out of step with God, or what if I'm this is going to send me to hell, or what if I
mm-hmm.
don't do the right things to be delivered or saved
Right.
from all this?
Right.
Am I really separate? Am I really part of the group? And there's the fear, kind of keeps us more than the addiction.
Yeah.
But
That's
but
true.
don't discount the fact that the addiction is there.
Yeah.
And when you say I like church, of course you do. It's designed to make you like it.
Mm-hmm.
It's designed to work on your emotions, just like a good movie
Mm-hmm.
or anything
Mm-hmm.
else. We've been on several series lately. I don't
Mm-hmm.
say what any of them are, but we've discovered a few new series and we binge watch them and go through the drama, and get sucked in, and then
Yeah.
and then we enjoy it.
Mm-hmm.
But that's really not enough to make you drive to church every week.
Mm-hmm.
You need organizations that have found that fear works
Mm-hmm.
and it sells tickets.
Yeah.
So,
Speaking of shows, we watched a documentary last night about John Candy. It was so, so good. And it made me think, about what you were talking about earlier, how, when we go to church, I mean, unless churches have become more trauma informed since we left a decade ago, I don't know. I've not gone to a church to know whether they are or not. So I sure don't want to say that they're not. But when we were there, but like, so John Candy's dad like had a massive heart attack on his fifth birthday and
mm,
died. And so from the age of 5, John Candy was not like they just kind of swept it under the rug. They didn't talk about it. There were no tears. There were no, we just went on with life. And I think about, sometimes that's how in the past how churches have been for me. It's like when you walk through that, and sometimes we hear that. I mean, we heard that example not too long ago when you were working with someone about how, just think happy thoughts kind of thing. And just the amount of, and how that anxiety started coming out for him, like shortly before he died.
Yeah.
And it's just like, it goes back to the books we've mentioned, The Body Keeps the Score and things like that. It's like we have to find ways. We cannot just push this stuff down. We cannot just pretend things don't happen. We can't, and then you think about the message of hell, and we just continue to heap kind of that anxiety on people. And what do we do with it? Where do we
Yeah.
go with it?
Yeah, so for the past 10 years, I think it's been a journey. It's interesting that we're writing this with our backs to the church that's right across the street
Mm-hmm.
where they had church this morning when I was writing this
Mm-hmm.
stuff. But if there's anything else that I've gotten from the deconstruction journey, from my decade of deconstruction, I think it's this. I think that over and over, um, I mean, not like 10 times in a week. I mean, like systematically over time, every few months, every half a year, every year, things happen where I've seen people come into our lives and what we've done together or what we've done with other people is this it's just this new thing that wasn't there in religion. And it's not that I fell off a cliff into the pit of despair, or not that I, you know, um, plunged into sin or whatever the things they told me would happen. Is
Right.
what's happened is that people have come into our lives, we've learned new things, and we've done like hard work
Mm-hmm.
of getting better, actually getting better.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Instead of what you were talking about before, just repeatedly burying that stuff and saying
Mm-hmm.
it's going to be better. God's going to take care of it. God has a plan. God has a purpose, even though nobody can find out what it is. But over and over, we've just seen opportunities to do the work,
Mm-hmm.
and the no closed doors to getting that done, except maybe our reluctance to do the hard work.
Mm-hmm.
But we've just had opportunity after opportunity to say, let's once and for all, let's get through
Mm-hmm.
this and let's sit together in uncomfortableness, whether that's with a small group or another person or someone we've met or someone we're hearing a story from on our podcast. Just over and over, we've had opportunities to actually get better, not wait for a miracle, not blame it on the scapegoat or find a scapegoat to blame it on, but to really do some hard work
Mm-hmm.
and get better. We've just had that opportunity over and over and over again, and
Mm-hmm.
I think that's worth it.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And like I said at the beginning of this podcast, like I'm not done with that either.
Hmm.
I feel like until I take my last breath, I'm going to be working on, trying to understand myself better, trying to, you know, live more authentically. And like I'm okay with that. I do think that there was a time, and I think it goes back to what you were saying, because I think there, when we first in this deconstruction, phase, it was like, why can't I get over this? Those are the things I would say to myself, like, how come I'm still dealing with this? Well, the reason I'm still dealing with it is because I've never dealt with it, right? And so, like, giving myself permission to, actually investigate, why am I feeling this way? Why is my heart rate going up? Why, do I have anxiety about this? And that has taken for me, therapy, medication, like I don't care.
Hmm.
I'll do what it takes, aside from doing anything illegal. Like I won't do
Yeah.
that. But like, yeah, it's like, why wouldn't I want to, understand myself better? Because when I understand myself better, that's just a more authentic, better version of myself that I can put out into the world.
So again, this recording is called I Don't Need Religion. It's from our Decades of Deconstruction series, and we're just getting started, just trying to figure out what all that is. But at the end of the blog, I wrote this. I said, I wrote this on Sunday morning, And just outside my window, people are gathering at church across the street. I'm not angry at them for doing what they believe is right for the reasons they think it should be done. I wouldn't encourage them to stop, but I sincerely hope they get to explore their questions thoroughly and someday discover what it feels like to be themselves and belong, regardless of their group affiliations.
Hmm.
So that's my closing. You got to.
No, that sounds like a good way to close, just be you. Carl always says, be where you are, be who you are, and
At peace.
be at peace. That's being your authentic self, and you can't ask for anything more than that.
Yeah. Thanks for tuning in.
Thank you for joining us today on the Desert Sanctuary podcast.
Remember, all who wander in the desert are not lost.
We believe all of our stories are sacred.
We are always here if you need someone to hear your story.
Check out our blog on Pathos and also our YouTube channel.
And stay tuned for our Leaning Forward conference.
Remember, we love you.
And be at peace.